The Dallas Cowboys are playing at an elite level right now as they currently sit at 3-1 after 4 weeks of the NFL season. In this video, we're going to discuss if the Dallas Cowboys are legitimate title contenders or if they're going to fall off. So let's get into the video. Unlike other playoff teams that are pretty much guaranteed a spot, the Dallas Cowboys have a much easier path to the playoffs as they play in one of the weakest divisions in all of football, that being the NFC East. With teams such as the Washington football team, the Philadelphia Eagles, and the New York Giants being in the same division as the Cowboys have some pretty easy games, and in the past it may have seemed like the Cowboys were up to the level, but the Cowboys are playing as one of the top premier teams in the league right now, and that should give them a huge advantage when they have 6 division games that should be easy wins for them. Right now, the Cowboys have played against pretty tough opponents so far this season, and they've proven that they could hang with them or beat them. They opened up the season on Thursday Night Football against the defending champions Buccaneers. It was the Buccaneers ring ceremony, and that game ended up being phenomenal when a lot of people figured that would just be a blowout, which was absolutely huge for, I believe, both the Dallas Cowboys and the Dallas Cowboys fans, because going into that game, I think a lot of people were expecting a blowout. It was, the first time fans were really getting to be in the stadium for a regular season game for the Buccaneers. Tom Brady and the Buccaneers were getting their rings. They were raising the championship banner. There was just so much hype around the Buccaneers that game that I feel like the Dallas Cowboys were kind of an afterthought, and people thought that the game would just be like a washout. The game itself would be kind of boring. However, it ended up being the complete opposite, as it was maybe one of the most thrilling primetime games of the season up to this date still. Dak Prescott, coming back from an injury, proved that the injury wasn't, affecting him anymore, even despite having some setbacks in training camp. He put on absolutely unbelievable performance as he threw the ball almost 60 times, but he had 403 yards, 3 touchdowns, and an interception. And he went toe-to-toe with maybe the greatest quarterback of all time, Tom Brady, who, threw for 379 yards, 4 touchdowns, and 2 interceptions. It was just a really good game and a really exciting game from an NFL fan standpoint because, people look back at like the Super Bowl a few years ago between the Rams and the Patriots, for example. People call that one of the most boring Super Bowls of all time because of how low scoring it was. Well, this week 1 matchup between the Cowboys and the Buccaneers was anything but that. The final score ended up being 31-29 as the Buccaneers kicked a field goal as time was expiring to beat the Dallas Cowboys. It was just unreal, and I really think that it was an exciting game. And it really, I think, showed the NFL that this Dallas Cowboys team with Dak Prescott is completely different than what we saw towards the end of last season when Andy Dalton was the quarterback. I mean, before last season, before Dak Prescott had that horrific injury, I think he was playing up to an MVP form already, and I think people forgot about that, or they weren't sure how he'd be able to bounce back from that injury because of how serious it was. And then he had some setbacks in training camp, so he wasn't even a full participant in training camp. So there's definitely some questions, but that game, I think he right off the first game of the season, he was able to really prove the doubters wrong and really show to the NFL world that he's back to that MVP form that he was in the beginning of last season. And they had, not only did they have a tough matchup week 1 that they ended up falling really close to, that being 31-29, then they play against the Los Angeles Chargers teams who, going into that game, people weren't really sure what to think. Just because, the Chargers did have a win against the Washington football team, and, they had a new head coach. But I think we could say safely now, after 4 weeks of the season, that Chargers team is really, really good. And despite it not being as high scoring of a game, the Dallas Cowboys and Chargers had a really tough fought game in that week too. And the Cowboys ended up coming on top 20-17. At the time, I feel like that game maybe didn't seem as important, or maybe it was like, oh, maybe the Cowboys aren't as good, but the Chargers have played really well this season as well. So I feel like that win for the Cowboys in general was huge, and that was Dak Prescott's worst game of the season. If we look at his stats, he had his highest completion percentage that game, sure, at 85.2%. He threw for 237 yards, 0 touchdowns, and 1 interception. His lowest quarterback rating by far of the season at 87.8. It was just not his greatest game, and the Cowboys were still able to come out on top. Tony Pollard absolutely went off that game. He had 13 carries for 109 yards. Zeke, on top of that, added 16 carries for 71 yards. And we're seeing this new element that the Cowboys are trying to implement this season with having a 2-headed monster running back in Ezekiel Elliott and Tony Pollard, which I think could be really good. I think we see a lot more success in the NFL running the ball now when you have 2 different kind of running backs, because you could kind of game plan around one running back and shut him down, unless your name's Derrick Henry, apparently. But the Ezekiel Elliott, people were wondering if his career was already done, and I feel like adding Tony Pollard in, it might, split carries now with him. He might take some carries away from Zeke. Maybe he won't have as much yardage, but we're seeing him have much more production in a two running back system opposed to a single back system when he was actually kind of struggling last year. So I really like that change from the Cowboys. I think that's actually helped their offense improve so much, and it was able to help them in that game when Dak Prescott not he was struggling. The Chargers secondary, I feel like, is very underrated. It's very young, and I feel like they played really, really well against the Cowboys that game. And the Cowboys were able to win against a tough opponent, so I think that's huge. Then they had their first division game, and just like I said in the beginning of the video, they have a really, really weak division, I would say. The Philadelphia Eagles had a really strong victory against the Atlanta Falcons in Week 1, and ever since then, they really just haven't looked as good as then. And I think that was more of the Falcons being bad opposed to the Eagles being that good. And we saw Dak Prescott have a great game. He had 238 yards, 3 touchdowns. He had 143.3 player rating that game, 80.8 completion percentage. So he had a really good game, didn't turn the ball over. And the Dallas Cowboys were able to wipe the floor with the Eagles as they won 41-21. That was another primetime game. And I think it was really able to show, the world again that the Cowboys team is for real. They've gotten off to hot starts in the past. Just like last year, I think they were off to a pretty good start, and then Dak got hurt. If this team can stay healthy, I think they've proven that they're a solid team. And then even this past weekend, they played against the Carolina Panthers, who were undefeated. And I know some people are saying the Panthers aren't a talented team to be like an undefeated team, but they were undefeated. You got to give the Cowboys credit. Like I always say, you can only line up against the team that lines up in front of you. I know Christian McCaffrey wasn't playing. That's a huge hit for the Panthers. However, the Panthers have been playing pretty well without Christian McCaffrey. Sam Darnold looks like he has had a resurgence in Carolina, and there's a lot of talent on the Panthers' offensive and defensive side of the ball. And the Cowboys were able to beat the undefeated Carolina Panthers to hand them the first loss. And again, it was another exciting game as the Cowboys ended up winning 36-28. Came down to the wire. The Panthers almost made a fourth quarter comeback, but it fell short as the Cowboys were able to hold them off. Dak Prescott, despite not having that many yards, he didn't turn the ball over. He had his lowest completion percentage of that game at 63.6%. He only threw for 188 yards, but he still threw for 4 touchdowns, the most he's thrown for this season in a single game, and 0 interceptions, which made him finish off with a player rating of 130.3. So despite him not having that many yards, he actually had, according to the player rating, his second best game of the season. Seems inconsistent, the ratings. I'm not really a big fan of ratings. I just say it because that's what's on the stat sheet. But if we look at all 4 of those games, that Cowboys have looked really, really good this season so far. And like I said, they added that 2-headed monster running back, which I've talked about in a lot of videos on this channel, how the Broncos have it, how the Cardinals have developed something like that's similar to that as well. I think it makes it harder for defense to game plan when you have a fresh running back coming in a lot of the time. If you're switching every snap, every 2 snaps, every series, you're always going to have a fresh running back in the game. And they always have no running back, I feel like, plays the same. Maybe they play similar to each other, but most of the time when you have like a 2 running back monster, you kind of have 2 different styles. So, for example, the Cowboys have Tony Pollard, who I would say is more of an elusive back, which means he's, like a quick, agile, makes a lot of jukes, cuts. He's probably a little bit faster than Zeke. And then you have Zeke, who isn't a traditional power back, but I would say he's more of a power back than Tony Pollard is. He can kind of run him up the middle. He's going to break some tackles. And they both really do their jobs well. And I feel like that's added a whole nother element to this Cowboys offense. And Dak Prescott's just been playing unreal. I know people have seen him twice on primetime already this year, and I feel like he's still not getting the credit he deserves. I feel like he's playing at an MVP level. I mean, MVP literally stands for most valuable player, and I would say look at what the Cowboys were last year and look at what they are right now. Or I should say look at what the Cowboys were last year without him and look at what they are now. And they really haven't changed much. I know they have another year under that Mike McCarthy system and stuff, so that helps obviously a little bit. But it looks like a completely different team when Dak Prescott's taking the snaps. And I feel like he deserves a lot more credit than he's getting. And the Cowboys, I think they're going to have a really, really easy shot to the playoffs. I don't think any of the teams in their division, the Washington football team, maybe when Ryan Fitzpatrick comes back, they'll be playing a little bit better. But I actually think Taylor Heineke's playing okay. And, the Washington football team isn't playing up to the standards that people thought. They have a really talented defensive line that's not been playing up to what everyone thought it would be. And the Washington football team's 2-2, so they're technically only one game behind the Cowboys. But they haven't played each other, and I think the Cowboys are going to be able to pretty much easily beat the Washington football team. I know you'd never want to say that in football, but from a talent aspect, from looking at past games, the Cowboys should be able to beat the Washington football team, and then they haven't played the Giants yet either, and that should be an easy win. I know the Giants are a growing team, and I think they're on the right track. But I think in this division, the only team that's ready to win right now is the Cowboys, and they're proving that they can win right now. So that's huge for them. It gives the Cowboys, they really have a chance. I think they have a cakewalk to the playoffs, and as long as they have a good record, they'll probably have a good seed. So if you win your division, no matter what, you have a home playoff game. Like, no matter what happens, even if you're like at the fourth, you finish fourth, you still have the wild card game. So I think the Cowboys are on a really good track right now to finish the season strongly. I know we're only 4 weeks into the season, and anything could happen. Of course, Ryan Fitzpatrick could, come back, and the Washington football team could go on like a 10-game winning streak. We don't really know what's going to happen, but I think the Cowboys definitely have the talent. Mike McCarthy, I think, has had a much better game plan this season, obviously being 1 year closer with his players, 1 year understanding more of his players. They're just on a good track, I think, and I personally think that the Cowboys are legitimate Super Bowl contenders this year. I know there's a lot of talent in the NFC, maybe not in the Cowboys division specifically, but I mean, in the NFC West, you have 4 teams that could probably make the playoffs in that division alone, and those are all solid teams with the Cardinals, Rams, 49ers, Seahawks. There's the Packers, who are a great team. You have the Buccaneers, the defending champs, the Panthers, who the Cowboys already beat. There's a lot of talent in that NFC, and of course, when it does come to the playoffs, if the Cowboys do, continue this great play and make the playoffs, like, playoffs are always hard. So, but I think the Cowboys, I can't name a team that has more talent than them that's playing better than them right now. I mean, maybe you want to go with the Cardinals or the Rams or something like that, but I would say the Cowboys are right up there with them. There's never been a game so far this season, and again, we're only 4 weeks into the season, so it's kind of tough to say. But the Cowboys have never been out of a game. The only game they've lost this season was against the Buccaneers, and they played phenomenal that game. The Buccaneers were just able to edge them out a little bit. It really came down to the wire in that game. And looking at the Cowboys schedule, I don't think there's a game they can't win. Obviously, you're going to have some losses. I doubt we're going to see the Dallas Cowboys finish 16-1. They might have some slumps, which is okay. You just have to make sure you want them to be playing the way they are playing right now at the end of the season. You want them to be playing strong against all their teams. They look good. You want them to stay healthy. And if that happens, I legitimately think that the Cowboys have a chance to win the Super Bowl this year. Let me know what you guys think in the comments below. Do you think I'm crazy, or do you think Dak Prescott could actually lead this team through the playoffs and to the Super Bowl? Let me know. If you guys enjoyed the video, please make sure to leave a like, comment, and subscribe. It helps out the channel so much you guys don't even understand. And have a great day.